What is a complete human? Is it a cover model? Is it a science geek? Is it a fitness expert? Or all of the above and more? Jana and Evan are crusaders that walk the earth looking at today's issues that touch our hearts and minds. The honest and hopeful outlook on the advancement of today's society. The science behind the decay of human relationships. The necessary preparations for future generations. Join us as we look deep inside ourselves and embark on a journey into becoming a complete human.
What is human potential?
Gather ye rosebuds while ye may. The Latin term for that sentiment is carpe diem. Now, who knows what that means? Carpe diem. That's seize the day.
Most people have a full measure of life. And most people just watch it slowly drip away.
And why do most people watch it slowly drip away?
A lot of people have a subconscious fear of growing to their full potential, and they self-sabotage themselves in so many ways.
In 1943, Abraham Maslow created what has come to be known as the hierarchy of basic human needs. This image has long been associated with man's quest to achieve their ultimate potential. And for as long as humans have walked the earth, people have dreamed about that potential. From fire and the wheel to putting a man on the moon, our desire to push the boundaries of what we once thought was impossible has been the driving force and often the crowning achievements in the relatively short history of humankind on this planet.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
But what really is the engine behind that force? And why are so many people prone to falling short of their ultimate potential? In this episode of Complete Human, we explore the untapped vastness of human potential with Dr. Kaufman. We investigate the origins of self-sabotage and uncover the truth behind Maslow, the pyramid, and man's quest to uncover the unlimited possibility of our own existence.
Hey guys, Jana Breslin here again. Most of you have heard me speak on the benefits of beets. Beets are well known as a powerful superfood and help the body create nitric oxide, the miracle molecule that supports a healthy cardiovascular system and sexual function. As an athlete, the nitric oxide boosting benefits help me power through workouts better than any artificial pre-workout I've ever taken. Now, this is why we created Complete Human Resbeet. You get all of the benefits of organic beets with additional anti-aging support from fermented resveratrol. Resveratrol is a longevity gene activator and is something I have turned to for years to help support anti-aging and optimal health. If you're not a fan of the taste of beets, we've got you covered with our all-natural and delicious dark cherry flavor. I take Resbeet twice a day, and I have to say, I feel incredible. Head on over to store.completehuman.com and enter the code podcast at checkout to get 20% off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Jana Breslin.
and Evan DeMarco. I'm really stoked about our next guest, but before we get to him, do me a favor, let's go back in time a little bit to like circa 1991. And if
I was 1 years old.
Yes, you were 1 years old, and if memory serves, like REM's "Losing My Religion" was number one on the radio.
Okay.
Cheers was still on TV, and I was in sixth grade, and in one of my gifted and talented classes, the teacher brings in one of those slides. Now this is the projector, and you're way too young for this, but the projector, and you'd put like these clear plastic
No,
things
I
on the
had those.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he puts on this triangle, and he starts to explain Maslow's hierarchy of basic human needs. Now, at the time, I'm type A, gung-ho, I see a mountain, I'm going to go climb it. So, food, clothing, shelter at the bottom, and then self-actualization at the top. And so for the rest of the class, I'm daydreaming about all of the cool things that are going to come out of self-actualization: fame, fortune, a professional baseball career, and when I leave that, probably lead humanity on an expedition to the stars. No idea what self-actualization is. Hop on my, my mongoose bicycle, which my parents bought for like $5 at a garage sale. Pedal home as fast as I can. Run in the front door. My mom says, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Not now, Mom. I got to go find me some self-actualization."
Oh.
So I remember going into my room, pulling out my journal, writing down in giant, bold number 2 pencil, "Get self-actualization." Yeah, and I think I sat back with a sigh of relief, chewed on the nub of my pencil, and dreamed again about all of the things that self actualization was going to bring me. Closed the journal with this finality that only a 6-year-old or a sixth grader could muster, and walked back out and began the rest of my life thinking that because I wrote that down, somehow it was going to manifest.
Mm.
And if I would have had our next guest then explaining what self-actualization was, then I might have actually accomplished that goal. But for the next 30 years, 30 plus years of my life, I've had this goal written down. And the one issue is I don't know what the fuck self-actualization actually is. So
Yeah.
I am stoked that our next guest is probably one of the foremost experts on this topic, as well as a few others. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kaufman.
Thank you so much for having me here. If it makes you feel any better, neither did Maslow.
There we go.
I found in an unpublished essay of notes he was writing in a footnote, he wrote, I hate that damn term self-actualization.
So
It is a little confusing.
it is, and I think that there's, there's been all of these interpretations of it over the years, but let's start with that. Well, actually, before we get to that, why don't you tell our viewers who you are?
Sure, I'd be happy to, but then I want to give you a grand reveal of the word he preferred better than self-actualization when you
Ooh.
look at his writings.
Can't
But
wait.
I am a humanistic psychologist, cognitive scientist. I'm interested in the mind brain, and human behavior and creativity and why people do all the absurd things that they do. Often feel like I'm just an observer from another planet, on this planet, just trying to make sense, of like, you go on Twitter, I'm like, what in the world is happening among humans? I'm fascinated. I'm endlessly fascinated. I seem to never get bored with wanting to understand humans, and their basic human needs, and also the higher needs of humans. What we could be as a species. I'm very, very interested in what we could be, as well as what is as well. I'm interested in both.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
so let's jump into what did Maslow prefer, and then what actually is that? What actually is actualization?
So he had written explicitly. He said, "I would like to, from henceforth here on, replace self-actualization with the phrase fully human."
Ooh, is
I
that
like
almost
that.
like complete human?
That's why I think you guys would dig this. Yes,
I like it
yes.
even better.
That was his preferred replacement. The idea of being fully human is really what the humanistic psychologists were very interested in. What does it mean to live a vital life that experientially makes you feel filled up with a sense of meaning and purpose, and filled up with a sense of connection with others, and spirituality, creativity. These were the kind of major themes of the humanistic psychologists. And in the spirit of that, that's why I asked, there's no need for self-actualization in my revised hierarchy of needs. I broke it down into 3 concrete needs that there are things that you could wrap your head around. So, so in that spirit, that's why there is no specific need for self-actualization. It's hard for anyone to really wrap their head around what that specifically means without unpacking that more. I mean, when in his earlier writings about self-actualization, he defined it as, whatever that unique potential is within you that that no one else can do, because we share a lot of needs with each other, like the needs for connection, the needs for self-esteem, the need for safety. It doesn't make you terribly special, if you want respect, who's not screaming for respect right now, you know what I mean, in our country, in America. But it is quite unique when you're like, I can play a violin concerto like no one else can, or I have the unique skill set to, and bullying, like, then it's like, oh, well, that's self-actualization. That's getting in the direction of self-actualization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we kind of get to your revised idea of this, it kind of sounds like the challenges with Maslow, and he even admittedly in some of the works that I said, said that this was just kind of something I wrote down. It's not like he didn't really believe it was the end all be all, but through
Mhm.
Facebook and Instagram and 1,000 memes that talk about this, because some some college kid took freshman psych and recognizes this is like the path to enlightenment. Maslow's work has been blown way out of proportion. But in a lot of ways, it seems like it's almost like I don't know, playing a game of Donkey Kong, right? Like you're just trying to get through the levels to get all the way to the top. But life
Yeah.
is not like that. And so the fluidity of life and the challenges of life present a never ending struggle. And, it's not like you reach the top of the summit and like, oh, I'm self
And then you
actualized.
won the game.
I won the game and,
Yeah.
and now it's fame and fortune and I get my own private island and, a harem of stewardesses.
I mean, I'll take the last two, but I feel like if I could have that without the fame and because the fame and fortune part, that's where they get you. That's not people. That's such a mirage. My gosh, people who dream their whole lives of getting fame and fortune. When they get the fame and fortune, they want to return it.
Yeah.
In almost every case, they're like, "Can I take it back that I wanted it?" You know, um, and I find that a fascinating phenomenon in itself. But
Interestingly
I
enough,
like
though,
I like the idea of having my own island. That sounds cool.
oh, very cool. And,
Like I
and
can have
interestingly,
parties and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and we'd love to be able to to get on the guest list for those.
Yes,
We'll
please.
put you on our guest list if we can get on yours.
sounds good.
Uh,
Sounds good.
One of the fascinating concepts that I did realize about self-actualization is that need to feel, intrinsically special, and within that,
Hmm.
is that driven by ego, right? Because we can say that I could be the best pianist in the world, but if people don't recognize that, am I the best pianist in the world? And so with that, is there this kind of driving force that's more ego based in us becoming, in Maslow's words, self-actualized?
The way I frame it is that each of us have the potential to become the best us in the entire world. Like there's no one else that has as much potential to fully realize, um, you know, Jonah Breslin, like than Jonah Breslin, right? Like no one in the world. Now that it sounds almost trite to say, but you really need to think of it in that way because a lot of people are trying to self-actualize. They're not trying to self-actualize. They're trying to copy someone else. They're trying to be someone else. And I often ask them, when I have clients, I do coaching, I say, well, what is it? Why are you trying so hard to self-actualize someone else's self? Like, why are you
Yeah.
why are you so committed to actualizing someone else's self? What's wrong with yourself? And a lot of people are afraid of themselves, and this is a big point I try to make in the book. It's called the Jonah complex. I think a lot of people are actually Maslow called this the Jonah complex, fear of growth. A lot of people have a subconscious fear of growing to their full potential, and they self-sabotage themselves in so many ways.
Why is that?
I was just about to ask, yeah. Why?
Well, there's a number of reasons. One can be that the tall poppy kind of gets pushed down, so it can kind of be a scary place. Going to your full heights. A lot of kids who are in gifted education as kids or gifted and talented education get bullied. They really get bullied. They didn't ask to have a talent. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like they in a lot of ways they it kind of it showed itself and they're like, oh wow, I have a knack for playing the cello or something, and they get excited about it, but whatever light shines bright, for some reason humans because they're jealous, because they all sorts of reasons want to kind of tear it down. So it can actually be a scary place being in that position of realizing your full potential and having it be a spotlight. So that's one reason. I think there's a number of reasons. It doesn't have to be that reason, but that could be one reason. But I think also there are serious self-esteem issues that a lot of people don't address, and they're not even aware of. And that's why I distinguish go to great pains in my book to distinguish between healthy self-esteem and what I call vulnerable narcissism. Vulnerable narcissism is a form of narcissism where we feel so fragile at the slightest criticism, and that really can hold us back big time from self-actualization and from fully growing to our full heights. Because we're the slightest sensitivity to a slight, for instance, or as opposed to putting yourself out there, letting it all hang out. I love letting it all hang out in an appropriate fashion, But
So
and
now we know the dress code on your island.
right, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to like. I feel like I need to clarify that. Like in the current context where the slightest thing you say can get you in trouble. I'll try to bracket everything I say. But I like to wear my heart on my sleeve. But it took me a lot of years to get to that point. Like, I think I used to be a huge vulnerable narcissist in my 20s. I had such because I was in special ed as a kid, and I felt like I went through so many years, just trying so hard to prove to people that I was smart, that was holding me back from actually realizing my full potential, because I was so focused on proving people wrong, as opposed to growing.
Fascinating.
Wow, that's strong.
Makes
It
sense?
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very powerful.
I do want to I want to tackle the societal thing, especially this packaging of how we have to say everything in a second. But before we do that, let's chat a little bit about your reimagined hierarchy. You've taken it from the Donkey Kong game of the 1980s, where it's a quest, and turned it more into a lifestyle, or an approach to life. I'd love for you to kind of explain how you came up with that, and, and what that looks like in comparison to Maslow's traditional hierarchy.
Well, first of all, Maslow never drew a pyramid.
Really?
Yeah,
Really? Wow. Okay.
he never. That's a big reveal. In none of his writings did he ever draw a pyramid, and that were a bunch of management consultant, and a bunch of people in the management world doing textbooks, where they had in the first iteration of it wasn't even a pyramid, but they tried to draw the hierarchy of needs, but as a step ladder. Then they had like the man at the top, self-realized with a flagpole, like holding a flag at the top, and then it morphed into a pyramid. But that the spirit of Maslow's theory was that we have deficiency motivation and we have growth motivation. He sometimes called it the D realm of human existence and the B realm, the being realm of human existence. And when we're in one realm or the other, we fundamentally, our perception of the world and everything changes. When we're in the D realm of human existence, we're motivated by deficiency. We're motivated by what we're lacking. So we're trying to control the world to conform to our deficiency. So if we're hungry, everything looks like a potential, it looks like a hamburger or broccoli if you're vegan. If you're if you're lonely, everyone you see everything through the lens alone. Like if you're severely deprived of human connection, you come across to people as needy, and it's a very unfortunate cycle, because then it scares the fuck out of people, and then they go away. They don't want to be friends with you, and it's a shame. I mean, it's a shame, but it is what it is. Um,
You just described me talking to girls when I was 14.
exactly.
You
Like, love me, please.
Exactly. And that's not like, like the what they want is they like the bad boy because the bad boy doesn't seem to care, you know. Um and then the need for self-esteem. When you're severely lacking self-esteem, you demand respect, right? You demand that the world conform to your lack of respect. So, but when you can enter the B realm, the being realm of human existence, you're not motivated by those deficiencies anymore. You're motivated by the spirit of exploration and integration and growth, and getting out and getting outside your comfort zone. In fact, so you're not as afraid of looking like an idiot. You're not as afraid of like, not only that, but you have love for the being of others. So which comes from I think it's a higher, more spiritual form of love, where it's not motivated by deficiency. You can just talk to someone and just admire them. Like I feel like I'm talking to you two right now. I don't want anything out of you two at all. But I feel like I admire both of you. I'm fascinated I'm fascinated with you. The dynamic between you two is fascinating. Like it's just I'm so fascinated with it. And really, like, I'm trying to lead with a spirit of be love, as opposed to deficiency. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you're
Yeah.
still getting an invitation to our island.
Yay!
We also don't like pants.
Yeah,
though.
it's a pants-free zone.
Well, this sounds like my kind of party.
And all of the waiters and waitresses that are serving cocktails will be dressed up as Mr. Potato Head, because we have no fucking problem with that.
That's a little controversial to gender the potato head.
Yeah, and within your hotel suite, it's going to be nothing but Dr. Seuss books.
Oh, right. So it's gonna be you're getting a bit controversial there, my friend.
You know what? This is the problem with society, right? Like if you're coming from this place of the the B realm,
Yeah.
do these things matter? Are the does Pepe
Hmm.
Le Pew really mean an epidemic of rape and sexual assault, or was he just a
Who-
fucking cartoon?
I actually don't. Who's Pepe Le Pew? Is that another controversy that I missed out on?
So
I'm sorry, I don't
Pepe
know
Le
about that one.
Pew was one of the original Warner Brothers cartoon characters, and he was in Space Jam the movie, and he was omitted
Oh,
from the reboot of Space Jam the movie because a whole group of people out there said that Pepe Le Pew, which was
huh.
he was a Mexican skunk, and he all he did was chase women. He chased the female
Oh.
skunk, and they said that it perpetuated a culture of rape. And I'm like, he's just a fucking cartoon. And like, come on, guys. And so yeah, our island is going to be politically incorrect. Nobody wears pants, and we all have fun, and we don't care about these
This
things.
all sounds great, except we should probably qualify that there won't be rape on our island.
No, of course
Can
not.
we at least
Right.
have some standards of morality?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
the standards of morality don't change, and I
yes.
think that's what we
Good.
I think that's the challenge that we see with society, right? Is
Yeah.
morality doesn't care what Mr. Potato Head is. Morality doesn't care what a cartoon says. Now, we can say that's right or that's wrong,
Hmm.
but what we can't I don't think that we have the position to go back and reinterpret the past based off of our own lens, which in for everything that you're saying seems to come more from that D realm than the B realm.
Very interesting. You just went on a very interesting kind of side pathway here in this conversation. This is obviously a big at the height of people's consciousness in the cultural wars right now. And I'm like, wow, he just went there. Okay. Um,
We
I
we go
think
there a lot.
Yeah.
oh, no, it's fine. I mean, I do too. I think it's a very complicated issue though. So I feel
Yeah.
like if we're gonna, if like let me know which thread you want to really dive fully in, and then I need to prepare my head for that.
We can unravel all of the threads. Do we need to address this as a epidemic within a pandemic? I think so, and I think that you in the beginning of this podcast said you kind of observe things almost from an alien's perspective, and I wonder from an observational perspective if we were to kind of look at the unraveling that I kind of see within the culture. Does it begin with social media? Does it begin with this lack of advanced citizenship where people have the ability to say things without ramifications for the words coming out of their mouth?
I think it's a big problem because I think that social media makes it too easy to get away with words. You can be so anonymous. I mean, and there's a lot of anonymous accounts, right, on Twitter. That's a big appeal is that you can do that. I've been using Clubhouse a lot lately. In fact, we should all do a Clubhouse event someday in the
We
psychology
Totally.
should.
club. I
Yeah.
started the
That'd be
psychology
great.
club, but uh, and yeah, I mean, there's real problems here. I mean, there's at the level of like 8, 10 different things we could tease out. There's the problem of the anonymity. People are not at their best when they can just like sit on their bed, lazy, like being able to just get away with saying anything. Like it's not bringing out the best in us. It's not bringing out like what discourse could be. I brought up Clubhouse because I noticed there's less of that hostility, less of that craziness on Clubhouse. I mean, it still exists for sure, but on Clubhouse, you actually are talking to people, and in that format, people tend to be a little more polite with each other,
Yeah.
But I think like Twitter and some of those social media, they make it too easy to be an asshole.
They
Oh,
do.
for sure.
And they give you the time. There's something that happens when you're in an active conversation with someone where you don't have the time to sit there and think about this ultimate response, which is really just a game of one-upsmanship. It's active dialogue, and within that, then we can uncover someone's motivations. We can uncover the truth. We talk about it in our business of radical transparency, and that
Mm.
happens in an active live setting where it doesn't necessarily happen in social media, where you have that time to sit there and think exactly what you want to say for the ultimate opportunity to score points instead of engaging in true dialogue.
Yeah, that's an interesting phrase, true dialogue. Maybe we can unpack what that means. You know, Well, first of all, let me turn the tables on you. Like, how would you define true dialogue? And I'll think through how I would define it. Oh, sorry, your audio just. Oh no, I can't hear you all of a sudden. This is so dramatic. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you
Okay,
hear
you're
us now?
back. Yes, yes.
That was
Yes.
weird.
Yeah, that's never happened before.
No,
Yeah, sorry, you were in the middle of a good
I don't remember.
You
what
were
it
in a juicy tidbit. Yes.
yeah, you were.
It was going to be the most brilliant thing I've ever said. Now I can't remember.
Yeah,
Uh,
what is a true what was the
True
phrase?
dialogue,
What
right?
is a true dialogue? I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting question. Yeah.
One of the challenges that I think takes place in modern communication is that we don't actively listen. We just wait for our opportunity to respond. And in that, I always remember something that my grandmother told me was God gave you two ears and one mouth so you can listen twice as much as you speak. Doesn't mean I'm really good at that, but it still makes a lot of sense to me. And I think a true dialogue is based off of giving the person the opportunity to speak, to understanding where that person's coming from, so the basis of empathy within communication, and then looking at a conversation that's based off of ideas and not just talking about things to talk about things. And we're really good about just we'll talk about people, we'll talk about politics, but we're not good in the true dialogue sense about coming up with ideas that solve modern day problems.
Mm.
And so in my mind, a true dialogue is an opportunity for two people to converse in a world where they're empathetic to the other person's point of view. They actively listen, they actively participate in a conversation, and they actively seek to move that conversation forward with an idea of coming up with something that's new and novel and creative versus just
I
bashing
like
what's
that.
old.
I really like that a lot. It's very in line with Carl Rogers, the humanistic psychologist, his discussions of active listening. He actually has a whole technique he called active listening. He wrote a book about it with that title, explaining that. Yeah, that seems to be very much in line with that. I like the idea of a co-creation. That was a nice twist, though. That was a cool, like, kind of like cherry on top at the end there, of what you were saying, because I don't think people often enter discussions like thinking of it as a co-creation. People they're like, this is my view, and then they may listen and be like, I'm a good listener, I'm listening, but here's my view again.
Yeah.
you know
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
exactly. Exactly.
Jeez. Yeah, great topics here.
So let's kind of come back to all of the work that you've done, and in this reimagined place. I'd love for you to kind of get into the boat concept, and let's talk a lot about, or let's explain the boat to us.
Sure. So you have the boat itself of the sailboat, which is the needs for security, the need for safety, the need for connection, and the need for self-esteem. I think those three things operate as a whole unit. When you're low and deficient in one, it tends to impact the other two and creating like a cycle of insecurity when you're deficient in them. Um, and once the boat is secure, you have a certain you feel stable in those three to a certain degree. I really feel like you can open the sail and be vulnerable to the winds and move somewhere. See, if you're just having the boat secure, you're still not going to move anywhere. Eventually you're going to have to open that sail and go and move in your most purposeful direction, with a spirit of exploration and what be love, what I was calling earlier, what I was referring to as be love, that Maslow called be love, love for the being of others. And or else you won't go anywhere. You need to risk that. You have to know that the waves could come crashing down anytime. There could be a global pandemic, but you still have to move. You still have to keep going. You still have to live your life. And also the other point of the sailboat metaphor, and a lot of aspects to the metaphor, but even though we're all traveling our own direction in our own sailboat, we're all in the sea together, and that wave can come crash down on all of us at once,
Mhm.
I'm a big advocate of common humanity, of rallying around common human needs, even though they may superficially look very different. Our behaviors, I think, underneath the behaviors, it really comes down to a handful of actual basic human needs that we all care about.
I love the
Right.
spirit of exploration. That sounds, that
Mm-hmm.
I
sounds
can
like
tell
something.
you
Yeah.
guys are. I can tell you guys are into exploration.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that's something we've lost as I don't want to say as a society. I almost want to say as a
Mm,
species. I think back
yeah,
to the 60s and
yeah,
JFK saying we're going to put a man on the moon and us rallying behind these big, wow, holy shit ideas and moving the human race forward in that spirit of exploration, in that spirit of community. And I don't feel like we have that anymore. I feel like we've just kind of now it's like who can post the coolest meme.
yeah. I mean, some people do have it. I mean, I think it'd be hard to make a case Elon Musk doesn't have that spirit of exploration.
Very true.
Uh, there are some people that have it. It's not something that's promoted in our school system, so a lot of kids aren't raised to even think that way. I mean, kids are terrified of getting out of their comfort zone at all, or else they won't do well in their standardized test. I mean, it all comes down to doing well in the test. So that's really, I think that's a real problem. You know, is the way that the culture, starting at a very young age, is almost antithetical to the exploration drive. But you do have people who are very much that way, and I wrote a whole book about that, called Wired to Create: Unraveling the Mysteries of the Creative Mind. And creative people they're all about the exploration, and that does show itself at a very early age. But I think that it often gets drummed out of us, and I think that's really unfortunate for sure.
It does, I would say I would argue that the biggest reason for that is because of the school system's propensity to label things either a success or a failure, and that failure is bad and success is good. And I think I would love for our audience to read the book that you just mentioned. I'm definitely going to read it, but I think when we look at some of these Elon Musks and these innovators and these these planetary shifters, these are the ones that don't look at failure as a bad thing. They look at it as a learning opportunity. It's like, all right, that didn't work.
Mhm.
Let's try something else.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Trial and error is like the biggest thing that creators are comfortable doing. You know, it's called equal odds roll. The more you create, the higher the probability one of those creations will be a masterpiece. You just have to keep creating lots and lots of content to increase
Absolutely.
those odds. Yeah.
I kind of just had a thought, but as far as like, and I'd love to get your take on this, but reaching our potential, reaching the human potential, I feel like a lot of the experiences that shape us, our childhood, people that we're surrounded with, when we're told that something's wrong with us or not, we're not smart enough, or like some of these things. I mean, if we didn't have those experiences, would it be easier for us to become our potential? Or is there a place for those maybe more unfortunate situations or experiences to help us reach our potential?
Whoa, it blew my mind. Um,
I do that sometimes.
can you somehow say that again so I can
Yeah, just I'm
process
just thinking
process it? Yeah.
the like as far as like our experiences and stuff, I feel like a lot of the reasons why a lot of people feel held back or that they can't reach their potential or they're having a trouble like more trouble reaching their potential is because of a lot of the experiences that have shaped them, right? Like a lot of the
Sure.
maybe traumas or just being told that they were wrong or bad or incorrect or their beliefs
Daddy issues.
I don't know, just stuff like that, right? And so I'm thinking, how much easier would it be for all of us
Yeah.
to reach our potential if we didn't have some of those things, kind of in the back of our mind, or is there a place where we do have or we can kind of use these experiences as ways to kind of help us reach our potential? I'm just kind of wondering if there's
Yeah, more the
do you see what I'm
latter.
trying to ask?
I
I don't
see.
know. Okay,
Can you
okay.
make an omelet without breaking some eggs?
No, well, it's a great question, but I would argue that breaking the eggs actually enables you to have higher potential.
Okay.
I would even go so far in the other direction. You look at the history of creative people and there's a very high proportion of them have had a disability or some sort of major impediment in their lives, some sort of adversity. There's a whole new emerging field in positive psychology called post-traumatic growth, which I think speaks to what you're referring to. People who have had trauma, not all of them, but a sizable proportion show growth in a number of domains, such as creative growth, spiritual development, deeper connection with others, um, a greater utilization of their strengths. There's kind of a restructuring of their priorities. Things kind of snap into view, a vision that they never saw before. Um, I I've been thinking about a question lately. I was actually thinking about tweeting it today, which is just simply the question: is peace boring?
And that's almost kind of what I was feeling as I mentioned
Yeah.
my comment was that is not necessarily peace, but like, let's take an example. If I was told growing up that I was stupid and I was, I needed more help with my mind or whatever. And if I was never told those things, would I believe in myself more? Would I have more uh would it be easier for me to reach my potential if I never had these thoughts kind of, inundated into my mind? I don't know.
Did this happen to you?
Uh eh, maybe a little bit, yeah.
Hmm.
But it just kind of, and
You
also
had
with
poor.
the comment that you said too, you saying you were in special ed and maybe
Yeah.
you were working so hard to prove to others that you
Yes.
were smart, right? And I can kind
Yes.
of relate to that a little bit. And so I'm just kind of
Wow.
curious if without that, is our
Yeah.
potential greater, or is there a place for our potential to be even greater because we have those experiences to help shape us?
The latter.
Mm.
I think, yeah, exactly what you just said. Now, I don't think in all cases that is the case. I mean, it's for a lot of people who've had trauma. It's not like they're glad they had the trauma so that they can grow. So we should make that clear. I mean, there's a famous rabbi who had the death of his son, and there's a really great quote I love to read where he says like, ever since my son's car accident death, or I forget how he died, but he said how ever since my son's death, I've shown greater love for people, I've shown greater appreciation, et cetera, et cetera. And then he says, but I would give that all up in a second to have my son back. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I think it is important to recognize that. But I think that this field of post-traumatic growth is showing that, given what has happened, what else can you do? But like, why not choose growth? Why
Right.
why have it all be for nothing? The suffering.
Right.
So let's turn the question back around to you. Is peace boring?
It's a question I meditated on. I meditated on that question this morning, and then I was going to pose the question to my followers on Twitter. Um, it's very interesting because um, I personally find like inner peace boring if I have too much of it for too long.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, it's nice, this is nice, but like I need something to fight here. and and that's not like I am a Buddhist. Like I really do believe in that philosophy, but I also think it's important to kind of question things, and to really just I like to be cheeky. I like to think through questions that no one else is asking, you know. Um there's something about the way we're wired that we can never be content for too long, or else that becomes a form of discontentment.
Makes
It's
perfect
such
Yeah.
sense.
something about the way we are, you know?
I believe that.
I was thinking about a really bad movie as you were describing that, and it was called First Night with Sean Connery and Julia Ormond and Richard Gere, and it was an Arthurian, Arthurian tale. Sean Connery played King Arthur, and in one of the scenes, he says in his beautiful Scottish brogue that there's a peace only to be found on the other side of war. And I think that that's kind of to a certain extent that embodies the human condition, right? Is too much peace and we become lackadaisical. we need that conflict, we need that challenge. And it doesn't have to be an all out battle with swords. It could be, just the internal conflict. It could be, the challenge that we present ourselves with, but growth happens in that. And, through that challenge, then we have the opportunity to reflect on that in meditation with a moment of peace. And then, the next challenge comes on. But if we have too much peace, do we just end up withering away and into nothing?
Right. Are we even strong? Can we even become strong?
Wow, these are really profound questions. I'm continually fascinated by like cults, for instance. Fascinated. I watch all these documentaries. I consume them like they're chocolate. I'm like, oh, new cults. I'm dropping everything and watching that. Something always fascinates me about these is that they never end well.
No.
They always start with love. They always start with peace. And like a commune, right? Like everyone's so peaceful and they're just having sex, in every which way all day long, and it's all they're doing, and it sounds great, right? But then there's always like a dark side that then comes out at some point where they sort of like they might have so much love for their in group, but they're gotta protect ourselves against anyone who wants to disturb our peace, and then they like load up with guns. Like I saw this recently, the Osho documentary. It was like, we're such a peace-loving people, but we gotta get lots of guns so we kill anyone who disagrees with us. I'm like, do you all not see the irony there? Like, are you not like, why are you not self-aware enough to see that craziness? Like, do you hear yourselves? But do you see my point? It just like there's something about human nature that's like, we just need to be we need to be balanced. I guess that's what I'm a big proponent of, is balance more than just like extreme peace, like or extreme anything.
Well, I mean, from a Buddhist perspective, that's yin and yang, right? And within that balance, it's not polar opposites, because like you said, it's like the one extremism of peace usually leads to the massive extremism of, oh, I have an Uzi now, like
It's amazing. Yeah, I
Protect
mean
the
it's
peace.
it's you know what I'm talking about, right? Like a lot
totally.
of these guys,
Well,
these
and
compounds,
you think of like Jim Jones or Waco or all of
yeah,
those places, and it's like the brochure sounds fantastic. It's it's you have no problems. It's just peace and love, and the Roman orgy every day. But
exactly.
at a certain point, it's like people are willing to die to protect that. What's that stupid song? The oh God, I'm peace on earth. It'll come to me like from
I feel
like
you.
the two warring tribes, and the one tribe wants to share it with the other tribe, but the other tribe says no, and they come and they kill everyone, and they open up the chest and it just says peace on earth.
Is it by Lady Gaga?
No, it's a little bit before Lady Gaga's
That's clever. That's actually really clever. I'd be curious to hear what that is. Returning to the Roman orgies point, I mean, even Roman orgies become. I mean, even Roman orgies become boring. I can tell you, after a certain period of time, they become boring.
There's so much in that statement to unpack.
Yes, there is. There's a lot to unpack there.
Did you have one with or without the farm chicken?
There's no farm chicken. And I'm kidding, because I think what exactly is a Roman orgy? Like, I'm not even sure.
I know what that is either.
Like, what is the
You just
Roman
said
variety
orgy
of it?
and
Yeah, what's the Roman variety of it again? Can you remind us?
I
Remind our
think
audience.
everybody starts off in a toga.
Oh, it's like a frat
Jesus.
party.
It's like a frat party gone
toga
bad.
party.
Okay, okay. But I imagine even you have those like like Hugh Hefner. He must have. I've heard stories that he got bored. With all his orgies at a certain point, and I heard he couldn't even get off anymore with all the women around him. He had to watch porn or something. This is a huge tangent, perhaps, or perhaps not. Perhaps you find that little fact about Hugh Hefner interesting, but I feel like it was somehow relevant to our discussion. Like, no matter what, like, you do something enough times, right?
Right.
You need variety, you need challenge. I think that's a big part of human nature. Um, you need things that like exercise our highest potentialities. I would say, or else we get bored. Do you see how I segued from Hugh Hefner to Maslow's
I
transcendence?
love that.
Absolutely. And then I want to segue.
There. Yeah,
That was genius.
Are you going back to orgies?
No, actually, I want to transition into completely something else. So
you're going to transition? Okay.
I am.
Into
You can call me
Jana.
Jenna. Yeah.
Anna.
Mm, You can call her Evan.
You don't want to be in this.
No, I don't. Uh,
Wow.
can I say something completely, off base and like, how do I say this? Might need to cut this. Like, if I were you, I don't know. I'd probably just spend all day in bed with myself.
Interesting.
This I'm speechless.
Yeah. I'm
Now,
not the
if
first.
you're saying if you were her, but with your own consciousness, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you've thought about this as a guy. If you woke up in a woman's body, you'd spend the greater part of that day just, test driving the vehicle.
But there's an underlying assumption there that if that her all she is her body. I'm just pointing this out from a logical point of view. You're saying if I were you, but you maintained your own consciousness,
Yeah.
well, then you're saying what it means to be her is just her body.
No, no,
Doesn't
no,
really-
no. That's not what I'm
That's the
saying. I appreciate
implication.
you. I appreciate you saying that. But if I woke up in Jana's body with my consciousness, I
You would
I
still be
know,
you.
yeah, and I know and love the depths of this human being so
Yeah.
far beyond the physical. But if I'm going to wake up in that body, bet your ass I'm going to test drive that thing.
Well, I hear your point. I hear your point.
You go from
But
the 1975 Yugo that is me to the Ferrari, you're going to play with that thing for a while.
but I
Sorry.
think it raises an interesting this is a philosophical thought experiment that you've inadvertently raised here, because what does it mean to be? Who is you? Do you identify yourself? Do you identify yourself only with your penis, or do you identify yourself with your consciousness? To me, my consciousness is more me than my body. Anyway, this you
That
we
is a
can get
great
really
question.
nerdy about
I
this.
love this.
Yeah.
I do identify myself more with my consciousness, except on Wednesday. Then it's just my penis.
Yeah, no, you need that. Hey, brother. I often say I have a dark side Sunday. Like everyone needs a day. No, I have a dark side Sunday. I fucking load up on the pizza delivery, like everything, whatever. And then everyone needs, it's balance. You need balance.
Balance. It's all about the Buddhist philosophy. It's the middle way.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. No, you're making good points. I mean, I take whatever you comes out of your mouth. I will take it seriously. I will contemplate it. So.
Good. Well, let's contemplate this. I was thinking about the Celestine Prophecy, that book that came out. I think it was 80s or 90s, and at the end of it, what they talk about, I think, if memory serves, is that the purest potential based off of these scrolls in this prophecy is that humans ultimately have the potential to almost vibrate out of the physical realm into another dimension. I don't know if that's where our potential lies as a species, but I'd be curious to understand, or I'd be curious to get your idea on what does a fully actualized society look like? What is really the outer limits of our potential?
Well, this is the $1 million question. I don't know what the outer limits of our potential is because I'm not God. So I can't answer that. I mean, there are people who think they know, but I don't think. I think if anyone on Earth tells you, in some sort of visionary way, I think they are either God or they think they're God. There's the only two options.
Or they're trying to
Um,
sell you something.
but in a lot of people that try to sell you something do think they're God. You know. Um, you see that probably all the time in your space. You probably see people who self market in such a way that it's like you're like, please get over yourself.
Oh yeah.
Do you ever see that? Yeah, with people.
Only on
but-
days of the week ending in Y.
Yeah. Wait, why?
Why? Did I miss that one?
Why?
Why? Because it's every day of the week.
Right.
That's true. That's true. But I want to take your question serious. It is a serious question, and I want to take it seriously. It's a great question. I just feel like we have to have humility when we discuss that question. I do think that there's a lot more potential that we could be as a species at the theory Z level. This is a theory Maslow had. He talked about theory X, theory Y. Um, uh, what could humans be? Theory X would just be like stimulus response. We're just like rats in a cage. Like just responding to environmental stimuli. Theory Y is being intrinsically motivated to do something, to actually have our own unique passions. But Theory Z is a very high level of transcendence where you kind of break down a lot of these false dichotomies we have in our society. Maslow called it dichotomy transcendence, which I think is a real key to wisdom. And we have a lot of dichotomies in our society right now. A lot of things that we are viewing in such a splitting sort of way, like evil versus good. Male versus female, selfish versus unselfish. I mean, that's we need to you can we need to transcend that dichotomy, right? Because if what does it mean to selfishly do something that you love that helps the world? What is the word selfish loses its meaning, when you have such a great integration between self and world. So I think at a very high level of consciousness, we can kind of have this Theory Z kind of transcender way of thinking about the world. I think that's definitely one thing that humans could be that we're not fully actualized right now.
So where do you think we are right now on that spectrum?
It feels like Theory X right now, unfortunately. It feels like people are very deficiency motivated and are being heavily influenced by government messages as well as the media. Um, People, not just media, but like discussion boards. You know, people are formulating conspiracy theories. People are um, all in their kind of silos, their little bubbles of media consumption. And when you have all these little silos of media consumption, like if you could zoom out and just look at humans, and you see all these people, pockets, that's all you see are pockets of people consuming their own media, where the media is telling them who the enemy is, and everyone's telling everyone that the enemy is someone different. So no one's seeing each other as human right now. And I think
It's
it's a real problem.
tribalism.
Run amok. It's tribalism run amok.
Yeah. I mean, like it's Lord of the Flies with better technology.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
I'm
it.
actually
Yeah.
curious, are you optimistic about the future?
Yes.
You are.
Because at the end of the day, I am a realistic optimist. Some may say that realistically, there's no hope for humanity. Perhaps someone can make that case, but I'm hopeful because I keep seeing thing. You look at cyclical of human nature. First of all, it's amazing that we still exist as a species, so that's promising. Second of all, I do think there's a lot of progress. I think it's almost controversial these days to say that there's been any progress in America, but I think that if you actually look at the trends of the world and America, you see there is overall an upward trajectory in almost every category that we consider important for progress for human species. I definitely direct people to read Steven Pinker's work on that topic, or listen to Steven Pinker's podcast, chat with me on that. So there are some. If we can zoom out of the moment for a second and look at it very objectively, which I recognize is hard for a lot of people who are suffering, like they're living it subjectively. But if you can zoom out and look at it objectively, there's actually incredible progress of humanity, and it's only moving in an upward trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that we want to do within our podcast, within our show, and with all the content we create is give people actionable steps to make the world a better place. And we
Cool.
recognize that healthier people lead to a healthier planet. And we've got major fundamental problems on both sides, both sides of that equation. The planet is suffering by the choices that we've made with the pollutants we throw into the oceans, with how we've created a world that's, very disposable. But summarily, we also have, the physical, the mental, the kind of the self-health problems that we need to address. So, even though if we zoom out, we've got this trajectory towards something better. What are some actionable steps that you would give to people to day in and day out improve the overall condition, starting with the self and knowing that that's going to ultimately have a greater impact on the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, great. I do think change starts from within. I say that all the time. I think it's very true. Part of it is really taking responsibility for your whole self, not just your best self. People tend to want to disavow parts of themselves they don't like and say that wasn't really me, and then only view the most moral, wonderful sides of themselves as the real you. I think so. That's one principle. I lay out 7 principles of becoming a whole person in an appendix of my book. Did you guys see that part of my book by any chance?
No, but I will definitely reference that in the show, and I'm going to. Can I get that on audiobook?
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you guys read my book at all?
No.
No, unfortunately.
No.
That's fine. That's totally fine. But you basically you get the gist of it after today's talk. You might like the appendix part of it, which is the principles of becoming a whole person. One of them really is accepting your whole self as a route to growth, not just part of yourself. I think another big part of growth um, uh, is not striving for happiness, but striving for growth and letting happiness come along as a ride, coming along for the ride. A lot of people trying to search for happiness or even search for meaning tend to be more depressed, you know, than those that just try to find moments in your day that just simply get outside your comfort zone that allow to utilize some of your highest strengths. And then also like try strength spotting in others. It's a great way, a great source, underrated source of well-being is just in everyone you talk to, try to spot their own strengths. You try to see the best in others, and you'll be amazed at what can come out of the conversation as opposed to just assuming the worst intention imaginable in someone you're talking to. I'm really all about grace culture. I think that we need more of a grace culture.
I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. And I want to
Well,
hammer
thank you.
that point home.
Tell me more about how
No,
brilliant.
well, look, I want to hammer that point home because I think the reality is, and I'm guilty of this, is
Mm.
we tend to approach interactions with new people in a competitive sense. What does this person have that I don't have? What can I get from this person? And I think, quite frankly, I lived in Santa Monica, where you're at, and
Oh.
Los Angeles breeds that. There's a social climber element to living in Los Angeles, where everybody's always just kind of looking out for the self. And that was a real challenge for me, is to get out of the scarcity mindset and recognize that celebrating someone else's successes didn't take away from my own.
Yeah.
So I love what you just said, is acknowledging other people's strength spotting. That is fucking fantastic. It's like, like that's listeners of Complete Human, like, do that every day for the next month, and let's just see what that does to your life.
Boom. Boom. Absolutely.
I love that. One thing, Dr. Kaufman, I noticed that you had on your website were some tests that you have, some like assessments that people can go and take and kind of maybe understand a little bit more about the personality. I took a couple this morning actually, and I thought they were pretty fascinating. I personally, this, I have an obsession with taking these personality tests, any kind of tests in general, just to know
Which one did
more.
you take? Did you
I
take
think
the
I did.
white
I think I did
dark
all
triad?
of them. I did all of them except the awe one.
Sure. So are you a psychopath?
I'm not. I'm not a psychopath. No, I'm not.
Whew.
No, I'm not. So the first one, it was, I can't remember the name of the
That
top,
would have
the
been
one on the
awkward.
top. That would have been really awkward.
Like,
That would have
geez.
been really awkward. But for me personally, it said that I am a truth seeker. That was with the first test that it
Beautiful.
was. Which was
Yeah.
I can't remember the
Yes.
name of it.
Yeah. Characteristics of self-actualization test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll tell you your top 3 sources of self-actualization.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't believe in binary labels, so I don't believe you're either a psychopath or you're not. I think we all are somewhere on the continuum. You
Oh,
know.
sure. And that's what
That-
I noticed
that's
in there. It kind of gives you like
Yeah.
a percentage of kind of
Percentage.
where you
Oh, yeah.
where you are.
Oh, totally.
And
Like, you without food, you're a psychopath. I'm sorry. I'm just
No,
gonna
I'm
say,
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah.
Him
contextual.
without food,
No.
he's a
Yeah.
psychopath.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
contextual. You're right. You're absolutely right. Did you say, but you did take the light for Stark Triad test?
I did.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah,
Cool.
it's, you kind of want to take it alone. You don't want to have someone watching you take it and like seeing your, what you're putting. It's very personal. That's, I mean, you got to sit with yourself and really think. These are
Yes.
uncomfortable questions.
I've made a lot of I not made, but I've been on some podcasts like with like celebrity podcasts and things, and I'm like, you should take the test right now while we're on air. This could be fun, and they're
Yeah.
like, I don't want to read my results to my audience. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
Right.
fair
I
enough.
mean, and honestly, I think to really understand like the truth of what comes out of it,
Yeah.
you have to be radically honest with yourself. And, I caught myself being like, oh, like, well, I would, that's not fully me. I would probably
That's
do
not
this, but
me.
even though, so you have to kind of catch yourself and be really honest. But I thought it was fantastic. So I would actually recommend, Complete Human listeners go to your website as well and check out those tests. I thought they were great.
Oh, thank you. It's Scott at scottbarrykaufman.com, and then yeah, go to resources and tests, self-actualization tests. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
cool.
fantastic.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we will put all that information in the show notes.
Oh, cool.
We are we're butting up against our clock here.
Yeah. I'm also butting it up against my bladder.
Probably Evan too.
Oh yeah, it's
So I've been having a lot of this cold brew. Have you guys tried the cold brew? Ever tried a cold brew? It
I think
literally
I
makes you
have
feel crazy.
I actually stopped drinking caffeine the last couple months.
Smart.
Because I noticed that even a little bit, I
Yeah.
already have anxiety, kind of not really that it's
Yeah.
bad, and so even a little caffeine just does not make that better for me. So I'm now onto mushroom coffee, whatever
I
that is.
love mushroom coffee. I
Yeah.
do. Four Sigmata, do you use? Or?
No, not that one. I'm trying a different brand right now, but
yeah, it's called psilocybin coffee.
I love it. I love it. You guys are so fun. You guys are a hoot.
Dr. Kaufman, this is awesome. Thank you for chatting with us today. I think this is just so much. We touched on a lot of
We did,
interesting topics.
And look, we're at a place where we need a different trajectory. We need a different path, and we need people like you to inspire us to seek our potential and not to just kind of wallow in Instagram or TikTok induced misery. And so I think we've kind of reached this tipping point in the world where the teachings of you versus the teachings of Kim Kardashian are really going to change how our future looks, and we want to push more people into what it is that you focus on versus kind of what the general population is looking at.
Well, I really appreciate what you just said, but just to take it down a level, I do twerk on my TikTok account. So
Yes.
Yeah.
don't roll that out. Check out my TikTok account. I do Kim Kardashian kind of dances. So
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but if that's all you were, that would not be your potential.
Right.
interesting. Well, I would push back against that for a second. I think that Kim Kardashian is actually self-actualizing in her own direction, and I want to leave the message. I certainly don't want to leave the message. There's only one way to self-actualize. Do you know what I mean? Like I do think I'm a big believer. I'm a coach. I have 17 clients, and every single one of them, I want them to self-actualize in their own direction. And if their own direction is whatever it is, it's like, who am I to judge that? You know what I mean? So
True,
yeah.
and we are not the ones to judge. We can do that from an armchair, which we typically do. But I think that when it comes to, I would much rather, and I will make the declaration that the world would be a much better place if people would read your books, including us, versus turning on the TV and watching the Kardashians.
Well, I know that underneath that is a wonderful spirit of a compliment to me. So I want to say thank you for that spirit. And I think there's everything has a place and a context, and Kim is certainly serving a function in the world. But I really appreciate your compliment. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, we mean nothing against Kim. I'm sure she's a very lovely person, and if she ever wants to come on the show, we can debate her, or we can discuss her self-actualization.
She's not coming to your show now, though. After that comment,
You just screwed.
I just screwed it.
Best your
Yeah.
chances of that.
Darn
But she'll
it.
come on my show because I defended her.
Exactly.
There we go. Well, then can we zoom in for that one? Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure. No, let's be friends. For sure.
Yes.
So yeah, we've got islands to build together.
Islands.
Yeah, let me know if you're ever in LA.
That'd be great.
We're going to be down there quite soon because Jana is going to be slicing some beets with a samurai sword.
Oh, cool.
I
That
think
sounds.
he's joking when he says that, but I'm actually going to be.
Yeah, we're going to have.
I'm in a beet slicing competition with Jesse Graff, who's from American Ninja Warrior. Yeah, it'll be a very fun little competition.
That sounds so much fun. Cool.
Yeah, and actually the location for that is going to be on the beach in Los Angeles. So we might have to migrate more towards the Santa Monica region.
We'll have to say hi.
Amazing. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys, for the chat today. I wish you all the best in your mission.
Thank you
so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Jana Breslin.
and Evan DeMarco. This was a fascinating conversation with Dr. Kaufman. All of his information will be in the show notes. We highly encourage you to follow him, read his books, listen to his podcast, and remember that your own potential is limitless, and we want to be a part of that journey. So let us know what you're doing to maximize your potential. Let him know, and let's all raise the conversation in the boat together.
Let's do it.
See you next week.
Bye, guys.